Welcome, my name is Michael Wickerson and I am condensing these master scripts for the MGSM course into very readable smaller scripts, and they come in about 60 sections covering the ribbon tools and Grasshopper for Rhino. We are getting into it a little bit, the maths, going into the operators, and we're going to be taking a look at basic calculations. So this is fairly simple. It doesn't require a Rhino screen to look at things, even though you can take things away and have some fun with it, but we're going to go from addition all the way through to some of the gates, logic gates that can be put into use. So let's jump right into it, try and get through a few of these today. I do have my school up and running, and I'm interested in the first week of class, but I know I have to prepare a lot of these by Labor Day coming up in the next week. So exercises maths are pretty simple. You want to jump into the operators and figure out what these nodes do. So I've just basically pulled them down with the help of a lot of number sliders. I took a look at the negative value, which will take my integer here as 9 and switch that. I use the multiplier, addition, subtraction, division, so you can take a look at the outputs, and you can use the panel node if you want to do that to see what's actually coming out of those numbers. And it's a way of writing expressions if you want to get into it a little later in the maths, which we will, into the expression and function nodes and possibly into some of the scripting nodes. This is a great way to reintroduce yourself to mathematics if you've been away from it for a while. So a power tool of A to the exponent B, and what that equals, what that would be multiplied and then added. The add function actually doesn't have anything put onto it, but if I start dropping these digits into here, you'll see I start to generate some numbers. And once again, just right click on here and hit ungroup, and then you can actually move these nodes around fairly quickly. And so we still have outcomes, and you can use your panel tool to see what is being generated. You basically have a calculator here that's like building your own train set. And this is so visually pleasing to me to be able to see things. And of course, you can use this data to drive geometries and have a pretty interesting time with what's going on. The absolute value, of course, takes anything positive or negative and then puts it into the positive. So if I had a value here that was negative 20 and run it through the absolute value, it's going to switch over to 20. And the integer division is pretty nice to divide and then flatten, I believe, go to the lowest or go to the floor of that integer of that division. It's not a rounding tool, I don't think so. So I have to just think about it. A is coming in as negative 80. It's being divided by 4. Because if I change that and divide by 5 or 6 or something, you'll see that it does go to the floor because it's 6 times. It would be 78, which is less than 80, so 80 divided by 6 would be the 13, the floor value of dividing that. And keep in mind it was negative. So just have a little fun with this. Modulus is pretty sweet because you'll have a division and then end up with a remainder if you ever work in mods. I had an absolute value of 80, and I'm taking it to mod 3, and I'm ending up with 2, which means in mod 3 it's going to be a 0, 1, or 2 value. Mod 4 I'll get a 0, 1, 2, 3 value. Mod 5 I'll get a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 value. But because this is dividing, the modulus of that, obviously 5 goes into 80, so you don't get a remainder. Let's take a look at 6, so I end up with a remainder 2. So pretty simple stuff, just to think about it as you pump it through here, and you can play with the numbers and see what you end up getting. We've got a nice mod 8 there. So the dividing factor of 80 divided by 9 will give you 72 with a remainder of 8. So just kind of think about that as you go. I'm going to fly through this. Factorial is a beautiful node, and I have a little data recorder on here, which is kind of fun. I can reset it. Reset the data value, and as I run through factorials, let's just take this through a simple animation, which is something I haven't done yet, and we'll run it through a slider of 10 values, and let's see what happens. We just generated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by mass addition, and we ended up with some beautiful numbers here and some massive numbers here. So try and think about what just actually happened through the data recorder as it ended up writing in the data to what was happening. There's no timer on this. It actually just took that. So I ran through the slider 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I multiplied it by 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And an interesting little play, but a wonderful way to generate some data and think about it that way. Also thinking of the mass multiplication, mass addition tools. I have a mentor and a friend that I'm peering up with and working with, Daniel Christoph, and he really makes really nice use of the mass addition and the mass. So you not only have the total, but you also have the parts that are adding up to that. Probably too high a value to think about this. Let's take this and take this edit value down to something like 4 or 5, which is still going to be a fairly nice number. Reset our data recorder and run it again. And we should be able to take that through that animation again to take through steps 5 this time. And there you go. You just generated 154 and 34,560, and you've basically done a mass addition and mass multiplication on here. A little easier to understand because the numbers are smaller. Factorials get pretty big pretty fast. What I have down here is I love ranges. And I've got steps of 4, so I've got out of here lists coming from 0 to 12, and then I have a list here from 0 to 12 again, because I have steps 3 and steps 4 here. What's the big difference? 5 and 4. And then with those numbers, I thought, as a first number and second number, what is less than, larger than, or equal to, and then this is one that's actually larger to or equal to. And then this one is equality I'm testing. So these are really nice little gates. This is smaller than. So these are conditionals that you can think to use. And then I've done a call pattern here of bringing out the data. And what have I done with it? You have to chase these back and take your initial range and pull it from that which is greater. And you can use that as a call pattern to get some data. And I like this because these call patterns actually come out. Let's see what value comes into there. And the outputs are worth exploring. And I'm just going to leave this as a little kind of functioning node. And it gets a little complex if you haven't done it before. You start to see the lists, what's being generated, what actually passes through gates, what comes from those two lists initially, this one and this one, and what do the conditionals do for allowing things through. It's kind of thinking about the logic that you may end up putting into your equations, because you can do that in your function nodes and expression nodes, but you can certainly put it into your scripts if you get into Python and C. Then down here you can see that what's really coming out are booleans and testing for that, so greater than, equal, or less than. I'm able to then think of those as an and, a gate and, to see which ones are true, and everything turns out false here. To think gate or, and we get all true values here. And then we start thinking gate majority, we get all true values. When we think gate not, we get a couple of falses and some trues in here. And when we get an ignore, we get all these falses. And I think this is good to run out and kind of wrap your head in. Coding and programming is difficult. You've got to take your time to plug through. Your mind gets wrapped around, and if it comes second nature to you, all the best to you. But it's nice to have a model that can play with the data, go into here, change the values, change the step count, change the initial numbers of the steps. I'll change it to 10. Actually, I'll take this one up to 26, and I will take the steps up to something a little higher. To get up to 10, it's going to start providing some different data, 10 and 3, and we see what's actually being passed through and what's allowed through. So we get the same kind of reaction as a Boolean testing for what is greater than, equal to, less than, and then possibly the and or gates of allowing data through. And this can be very helpful, and we're starting to look into the call pattern tool, which is a list of data. This one, why am I not running call pattern list? I'm calling out a pattern from this information equalities, which happen to be all false, so nothing's running through there, nothing's coming through. And my list that's coming through are these 4 numbers. So let's see if we have anything that's not all false. Let's take a true pattern and jump it into here and see if I end up, actually that's not where I wanted to end up. I want to take this data and put it into this one, and there we go. It starts allowing through everything is true, so you get your data. So it's a very nice little tool, but it's starting to work off the operators and conditionals. So kind of confusing. I set these up. They're available to you to play with. They're all out here running the nodes, and you're starting to take a look within the maths and figuring out what those operators do. You may avoid these. You may not use these. You may be better at scripting and writing these logically into scripts. But if you want to get into node scripting, it really helps wrap your head around it. It's a challenging exercise if you haven't done it before, but slowly your mind starts to adjust to it, and you start to understand the logic more and more. Thanks for watching. We're going to jump onto polynomials and grab this section, do a little bit with cube roots, logarithms, and other functions that I think make beautiful adjustments to curves, kind of like the graph mapper does, and then we'll go into scripts a little bit and try and get into there. And then we're on to one of my favorite sections, which is trigonometry, and let's see what happens. What I will do is package this all away again into a group, and if I really like what I've done and I'm pretty happy with it, I usually send it over to a little blue color for you. I'll save that, and now I will just go on and save the next document, which is coming, which will be 6 exercise, and we'll do maths polynomials. And you can look forward to that in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.